FBC family.
What's going on?
What it do?
What's going on, guys?
We in the building, man.
Man, listen. It feels good to be here.
It
Yeah,
was good.
nah, for sure.
I really be needing this.
Back in these red seats, man.
The doggone red chairs.
My healing place.
The infamous red chairs.
that.
Place, huh? Wow,
listen,
bro.
I like that.
Wow, bro.
So for real, y'all are a big part of my journey.
Come on.
Like, a lot of things happen right here
I
that
agree.
created a breakthrough for me.
Right.
Wow.
So I'll forever
Wow, bro.
be thankful for my FBC
Come on.
family.
Listen,
By choice.
that's because we are family by choice,
Come on.
where we are helping families navigate life through real, transparent conversation.
Come on.
Real deal,
That's
man.
that's
who we
what
are.
happens. That's what happens when
It
you
happens.
rock with us.
That's
You
the
know what I'm
purpose of the
saying?
show.
It's the
That
purpose of the
is.
show.
That's what we do.
It's the purpose of okay. So in the purpose of the show,
Yes.
man, we got another family by letter, y'all.
Okay.
Another family
Family
letter.
Right.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I mixed it up with family by choice.
Right,
So we have
right.
another
What do we got?
family,
Family letter.
family
Yes.
letter.
Family letter.
I don't know. Somebody wrote another letter.
We have a letter.
And we're about to have a family meeting.
We're gonna have a family meeting concerning it, man. So I want to read the letter real quick. This one is called. They titled it "Learning to Forgive Yourself and Others."
Okay.
So, dear family by choice, I hold on to a lot of guilt and resentment, both towards myself and others who have hurt me. I know forgiveness is important, but it feels impossible to let go. How do I take the first steps towards real forgiveness? And they signed this letter, stuck in the past. That's pretty deep, man. Stuck in the past. But you know what, man? It kind of runs hand in hand, even with our last show when we were talking about, some of the things that I've been going through as far as acknowledging things that's happened and trauma and all that stuff, man. But now we're talking about forgiveness, y'all.
Sheesh.
See, that's a big part of the process.
Big part of the
It
process.
is.
That's a big part of that process, and the way she ended it is exactly what happens.
Yeah.
When you do not forgive.
Stuck in the past.
Man, listen. One of the things that I've learned that is probably like my superpower is not just to forgive, but to forgive quickly. I don't let nothing linger. I don't hold on to nothing because I understand when I do, it only hurts me.
Yeah.
Facts.
So I mean that if there's anything that I can tell anyone, and I understand that we all have things that there are some traumatic things that happen to people in life.
Yeah.
Sexual abuse, things where people are physically, mentally, verbally abused in life. And I know it's hard for people who have gone through those things to forgive the people that did that to them. But I know, and I'm not here to discount anything that's happened to anyone.
Yeah.
But I will say that I know that you will at least begin to feel better
Yeah.
when you decide to forgive. I'm not telling you to forget. I'm not telling you not to be safe.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you to forgive.
Yeah.
So let me ask this. So when it comes to forgiveness, I think a lot of people may have a skewed understanding and feeling like when they forgive, it's for the other person.
Right.
When in actuality, it's for self
It is.
to move forward.
I put it to you like this. When you don't understand the purpose of a thing, you'll abuse it and in some cases try to weaponize it, right? So when it comes to unforgiveness, sometimes you may not have the physical strength to go back and forth with the, what do you call it? The perpetrator,
Oh, okay.
right? So I can't beat you.
The
like you talk about
inflictor.
sexual, the
Absolutely.
person who inflicted the pain on you,
Yeah.
you can't go back and forth with them physically. So you'll try to hit them where you think it hurts. I'll ignore you. I'll do this. I'll do that. And it's like you abuse something. Unforgiveness is like drinking poison and expecting for the other person to die. It feels good in the moment.
Say it one more time.
Unforgiveness is like drinking poison yourself,
Yeah.
expecting for it to affect the other person.
Ooh.
You feel me?
It is.
So it's like you got to be mindful that no, like Jay said, no, this is for me. I'm stagnant if I'm holding on to unforgiveness.
Yeah.
I'm crippled. I'm poisoned. I'm dying. if I hold on to this unforgiveness. So the forgiving the other person, as though it's to your flesh and your emotions, feels like the weaker part. It's the strongest thing you could do to be free from the grasp of that person.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, look, I mean, that's the show. So, all right, guys. But but
seriously,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say one of the things because I had to kind of do some of that work. I'm really much like Jay. We talk about this often, how Amy and Anthony are very similar. Me and Jason are very similar. So I have learned throughout my life.
You're not like Jason.
We got a lot
In the aspect of certain scenarios. Yes, we are. But I've learned to forgive very quickly. Yeah. And however, in our early stages of our marriage, one of the things that Anthony would bring to my attention is that I held resentment toward him throughout the early years of our marriage because I was young, immature. We were young and immature, and we inflicted a lot of pain on each other. And even though I said I forgave him, he would constantly remind me, like, I feel as if you are trying to make me pay. And this was happening all subconsciously because in my conscious mind, I felt like I was the best. I'm like, you have got to be tripping. I'm the best wife you could ever have. You know what I'm saying? But his experience of me was that I constantly held that unforgiveness on the forefront in the things that I do. Right. And I had to go get therapy. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I had to go get therapy so that she can walk me through and break some of that down. And in understanding the mind, brain, and body connection.
And then we went together.
We did. But understanding that breakdown and how the mind and the brain are not the same, but they affect the body. I think I alluded to it in another episode. But the things like the messages our mind or the experiences our mind takes in, our brain processes and communicates things to our body. And so you have illnesses. People literally get sick from unforgiveness.
Cancer.
My grandfather, my dad's father, he died of a broken heart. Yeah. Like
literally.
A literal broken heart. But that was from undealt with emotional baggage, with
the baby boomers.
All of these other experiences, but sweetest guy ever, but had unresolved hurt, unresolved things he held against himself for decisions he made and different things that he had experienced, and he held on to it, never addressed it, never processed it, and died from a broken heart. We know people who have battled cancer and deal with high levels of anxiety. All of this is. And I hate to say it, but then sometimes you need to say it's almost self-inflicted because you want to hold on to those pains.
Yeah, it's familiar.
Yes. So you don't deal with it, and because you don't deal with it, it's stored in your body.
So you mentioned, and Jay mentioned, forgiving quickly
because we're a lot alike.
So Constance is not like
she's the female version.
I don't think I would be able to sleep with her if she was right here all the way. I'm like, wait a minute.
So I'm asking. So Constance and Jason, y'all both mentioned forgiveness and forgiving quickly.
Right.
How do you know? One, how to forgive quickly, but then when you do forgive quickly, like, how do you know that that's real forgiveness, though? Like, okay, I forgive you quickly, but is that really forgiveness?
I don't think that's something
you can question
because it has to be in you.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? Forgiveness takes practice. And that, like anything, the more you practice something, the better you get at it. The faster it happens. You know what I mean? So if I started learning how to mow the lawn. The first time it might take me a little longer. The second time I might get a little faster at it. The third time I've mastered it. So now I'm able to kind of move and I got a pattern. And that's what it is. Forgiveness takes practice. So as long as we're actually practicing to forgive, meaning we do it actively. everything that we do, or anytime somebody does something to us, then we have to already start processing how we feel about that.
That's right.
Immediately. We can't hold on to it.
That's right.
We can't let it linger. We can't think about it too long. What we have to do is address it immediately. So with me, Amy will tell you, if you do something to me now, I'm addressing you real time because I don't have time to have any alt in my heart. I don't have time to have unforgiveness in me. So anybody that's around me, I'm probably irritating their soul because I speak my mind. And that is a big part of forgiveness because I know that the words that come out of my mouth, I'm not doing it to offend you. I'm doing it to make myself feel better.
So I'm able to put a check mark in the box of one step of forgiveness is putting a process in place for yourself to practice forgiveness through open communication. Are we saying that?
Talking, do speaking. Yeah, just
so open communication.
Absolutely.
So that's one of the steps to forgiveness.
I would say I do a lot of internal processing. So I receive a message, you know what I'm saying? And my brain immediately goes into it's like a transformer or something. Like I'm like doop 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 doop. Yeah. I used to make comments that when me and Anthony got married early on, he used to say different things to me, and the way I heard it is definitely not what he was saying. Like he would say one message, and what I heard was. And I believe this to my soul, that God allowed me to hear his heart versus the words he was saying. Now, the words he was saying might have been hurtful. And it might have been really unrelated. You know what I'm saying? He might have said, I'm mad. Or, you didn't do that right. But what I heard was, I'm afraid. You know what I'm saying? Like that's how I don't know. That's I can't explain it. But that's how there was just a season where that's how the messages were processed. Nice. And to Jason's point of practicing, because there was a season where, and I don't know, it just happened. You know what I mean? I practiced that. So now it became me. You know what I'm saying? So when people do things, Anthony might hear something and his response may be way different. So then he'll have me like close by because he like, I know your process is different from my process. And I go from 0 to 100 and I might need not go that far. So he stick close by. But that I literally process it for, I genuinely want to believe the best in all people.
Everybody.
Like it's the God in me.
Yeah.
It's the God in me. I want to believe the best. And I think that's a part of what helps me to forgive quickly because I want to believe the best, even when you're toxic as heck. And some people might think that's crazy, but for me, it really saves me a lot of unnecessary trash holding. You know what I'm saying? Because if I'm believing the best in you, then I'm believing that when God created you, he ain't make no mistake. Right. And your reasoning for malfunctioning in this moment,
even with good intentions,
there's a backstory to it.
And something to it. There's a reason, a rhyme or whatever, and I'm gonna give you grace. Show you grace. Because I know that there was something in you that happened to you that caused you to react or do whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah. That's that's how we release it.
So we're saying processing beyond what we see directly in front of us.
Absolutely.
Every action causes a reaction. And sometimes reactions are delayed.
Yeah.
So that person that reacted to you a certain type of way, that could have been a flashback of something that happened to them when they was younger.
Absolutely.
So actions have reactions. So therefore, we have to walk in grace. We have to walk in forgiveness because if we don't, it's just as simple as a waitress. We went to a restaurant last night. We didn't have the best waitress, right? And the first thing I said to myself was that I'm gonna make sure I show her some grace, and I'm gonna tip her the same way that I would if she gave me the best service.
Phenomenal service, right?
You understand? Because as we started to realize she was new, she hadn't been there long. It was overwhelming. There was a lot of people, yada, yada, yada. So eventually God started to show me why you tip her to encourage her to keep going and doing whatever it is she's doing so she can reach her goal. I just operate in grace.
Yeah.
And I believe that helps me with forgiveness.
I agree.
Because at the end of the day, we all come from a place.
So
go ahead, I'm sorry.
So y'all saying basically forgiveness is supernatural.
Yeah.
It's a choice. Well, is it a choice? Because you're saying true grace. You're using words like grace. You're using words like you know, God, you know, in that season, God told me so. You know, I think, you know, if you're thinking of it like carnally, like, you know, if you're talking to somebody who do not have a relationship with God or don't know God, you know, don't have that relationship, then, you know, okay, the first thing is what? Acknowledging that you got to forgive somebody or forgive yourself. And then right before we started filming this, Ant said the perspective. It's like forgiveness is in the perspective.
People create their own definitions.
Yeah, their own definition for the definition forgiveness.
Yeah.
So you know, you also have to look at what your definition of forgiveness is.
Facts.
Because you know, I think my definition of forgiveness is like all is well.
Yeah,
like all is well, but it doesn't mean that I have to mess with you, talk to you, kick it with you. If I'm forgiving a person, right?
For sure.
If I'm forgiving somebody else who did something to me, right? But what if I did something to somebody else? Like, what if Jason needs to forgive me for something I did, right? So what I will say in that aspect of forgiving yourself, it's not about the reaction of the other person.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's not like whatever. So if it depends on the perspective of forgiveness, but it's also like y'all were saying, it's supernatural too, because, you know, because let's say Jason decided not to forgive me for whatever, then am I going to carry around the guilt and the shame of whatever I did? So now.
You just brought up a whole nother point of forgiveness too. That's a whole nother side of it. By forgiving people, you actually release them, man. Because a lot of people are, remember when I went and visited my biological father, I released him.
You did.
I released him. I told him, I said, hey, man, you ain't got to carry this no more. You good. I live a great life. So I didn't mean to cut you off, but I wanted to bring that up because
it's a good point.
Forgiveness is most definitely not, it is for you, but it also helps others. Because the moment you release somebody from the things that they've done to you, they're able to actually do the same to someone else. And I think that's where the supernatural part is too.
I think sometimes they get to a place where they want it to be like it was so bad, they'll view the forgiveness and the release as a punishment. Because it's like, all right, so we could go back to where we were before? No. We can't do that. But I do forgive you and I do release you. Well, that's not real forgiveness. No, it is. It really is. Well, how do you know it's forgiveness? Because I don't feel some type of way in your presence anymore.
I can be around you.
I can be around you.
I can hug you.
So a lot of times people think that forgiveness means the removal of boundaries.
We go back to the default relationship we had. And it's like, no, it's like we can meet up, we can eat, we could do stuff like that, but you can't come into my holies of holies anymore. There had to be because we're human. People say forgive and forget. How can you forget? Unless you got amnesia or head trauma. I remember what happened. And as a human, when I remember what happens, there's still a piece that reminds me, don't go back that way. They showed you who they were. Believe them.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So, you know, when I say people try to create these definitions of forgiveness, it's like, listen, like Jay said, I forgive you and I release you to be who you need to be without worrying about if I'm upset with you or not, if I got an issue with you or not. I don't have an issue with you. I've forgiven you. I've chosen to give this situation to God. I can be very cordial with you. I still love you. However, I have to create healthy boundaries, not walls. Healthy boundaries, because like you said, with walls, I can't interact with you. Is that really forgiveness? You know what I'm saying? Can I still hold strong to the Great Commission of God as far as being able to, love my brother, love my sister? You know what I'm saying? But it's like, no, there's healthy boundaries. I love you and I could still have exchanges with you but you can't come to my house.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing. But the person that really desires that can view it as that and call your forgiveness fake.
But see, that's the thing about that. And I'm glad you said that. I'm very happy that my forgiveness is for me. Because what you think about my forgiveness
don't matter. That's between you and God.
Nothing.
That's between you and God.
Yeah, it's really none of your business. But I will say that, in that case, that's what I'm saying. Forgiveness is like, okay, I did something. I apologize. Yeah. I can't expect the other person to interact the way I want to interact. Right. I'm not trying to control them. Yeah. What I'm trying to do is move on from the shame and the guilt of myself.
Yeah.
So, because forgiveness, I think everybody talk about forgiveness like everybody else is doing something to them. Like it's always outside. Right. But a lot of times, you are the problem.
You are the problem.
And you are operating in hurt. And what do they always say? Hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
So you gotta recognize, like, sometimes, forgiveness is outward. I'm forgiving them, but also you gotta forgive yourself. But also you need to ask for forgiveness and learn how to apologize for the things you do too. So then you can go back and say, you know what? I righted these wrongs. Right. Now I can forgive them over here.
Talk about apology though.
Come on.
Talk about apology.
I was going to talk about it.
I'm sorry for everything I did to you. Forgive me. Is that apology?
No, I mean, it depends on the person.
Well, I don't think it's an apology, however, because we haven't really spoke and got real deep into everything you did.
Yeah.
So like, let's go to if we're going to go there, let's go all the way there. And sometimes those conversations have to be in parts. Yeah. Like it's not all
so heavy.
Because it's so heavy and it's so much. Right. As a parent, maybe you have to do that, with your children, because, I'm not the same person I was at 20.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? At 19, when I had a child, at 19, I'm not that same 19-year-old. Yeah. I have matured. Absolutely. I have become better as a person, have recognized flaws that I did. Right. So it's not always, and it may take increments of conversations to get to a better place. And you just got to kind of be open to seeing the flaws in yourself. Or even if you don't see them right away.
Right.
But being open. Yeah, being open to it, because if it's always them over there, more than likely, it's you.
Come on. Yeah.
But what if a person doesn't have the capacity to give it and get into detail? Like, you got some people that just saying sorry is enough because they've never said sorry a day in their life.
Let me tell you, I'm thinking about, and there's no bad blood as of now, but immediately I was thinking about a situation where the mother of Anthony's children had a conversation separately between with Anthony and I. Well, between me and her, and then with Anthony and her, and me and Anthony ended up in two totally different places based off of the conversation.
Right.
So the conversation she had with me was very specific, was very direct. You know what I'm saying? Like, as far as her taking accountability for the different things that she had done, as far as our relationship and to me as his wife, and I felt good about it. You know what I'm saying? And she felt good about it. But then the conversation that she had with Anthony was very
general,
summarized. And as a result of it, left him in a completely different space. And so there came a point in time where the forgiveness had to be extended to, like, I'm going to forgive, you know what I'm saying? But I'm also going to put up those boundaries. And that really affected her in not so good of a way. You know what I'm saying?
I just want to, because just looking at you guys too, right? Y'all are two different individuals as people, right? I mean, two different individuals. You just had two different conversations with the same person, right? I want to say, I believe that she was so open and easy with you because you didn't do anything to her.
Right.
And your heart was ready to receive her in all the conversation, where Ant had some stuff he was dealing with on the other side. And she knew it. So when she stepped in there, she knew she was dealing with a hungry lion. So I can't get into the detail because that detail would have required both of them to forgive each other. Because
I beg to differ because at the time we had this conversation, we had extended so much grace, extended so much love, like the atmosphere had been set for a real conversation to be had. And honestly, what made me think about the incident is because when you talk about how people aren't ready to face those things.
Yeah, the things
right. And so I think we believe that it was the things she would have to confront.
Right.
That she, even though she wanted to be beyond it,
because I wasn't giving off like you say, hungry lion vibes. I was like, the atmosphere had been completely set for restoration.
Yeah.
So was this before? Was this before you made the decision that I was going to put up the boundaries, or was this after?
This was before.
So this is before. So the conversation led to you saying, "Hey,
yes,
these are the boundaries."
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. So I thought it was a conversation after.
No,
gotcha.
It was before, and then as a result of it, it was like, okay, because we've set the atmosphere. You know what I mean?
No, I remember that,
and we agreed and just said, you know what? At this point, we release you from having to, because at this point we can't force you to address those things. But now Anthony is faced with, I'm going to have to Mocha's not here, but she said something one time. It's like, what if the person never apologizes? What will you do then?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the question he had to face. What if she never apologizes? What if I never get what you got, Constance?
Yeah.
What if and these are life altering things. Yeah. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it's like, again, going back to understanding the backstory, and he had to walk it through. Like, okay, let me take it back from what I know of her. I know her all the way back to teenage years. Yeah. So let me consider that.
It helps you realize at heart she's a good person.
Right.
She was afraid.
Right. Yeah.
She was afraid. And it's like you're either aging in grace or growing in grace. And there's a difference.
Yeah.
Because in order to age, all you got to do is eat, sleep,
keep living,
use the bathroom. And you're getting older.
Yeah.
You know, but to develop, to grow in it,
mature in it,
you got to give it time and specific intention and attention. That's the acknowledging that we was talking about before. I acknowledge that this is something that needs attention, and I acknowledge that I don't have the capacity to do it in and of myself. Lord, I need you.
So what you just said, I mean, that's major. So for the person who's stuck in the past, those two words, giving it attention and then intention.
I'm being intentional about allowing the Holy Spirit to heal me of this thing. Because if I try to do it in and of myself, I remember the trauma. I remember the initial injury. And I remember how I didn't do anything to you to deserve that. So you'll be stuck there, and it's like being on a rat wheel. And you'll have the feeling of exertion because you're doing a lot of work.
It's a lot,
but you're sweating, but you're not going anywhere.
But what if the person, you said something, and this is what I be saying about measuring people's trauma. You said, I've never done anything for you to deserve that. Right. But what if she felt like you did?
That's a possibility.
It is.
Which is why you have to go back to considering.
And I asked that question.
Yeah.
And she answered it.
I was going to say that's why you have to go back to considering the backstory.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And at the end of the day, what he had to rest on is, you know what? She hasn't always been this person that I dislike.
No.
You know what I'm saying? At some point, we were cool and homies. Yeah. We may never be that, but let me recall
the good times.
I can tell you one of the things I did that helped me understand. Because of the hurt, I wasn't being empathetic like I would be with any other situation.
Right.
It wasn't even what was on the forefront of my thinking when it comes to anybody else. Was like far-fetched when it came to her. Yeah. So once I put myself in when I put myself in her shoes, she was a teenager, she was afraid, and we were friends.
Yeah.
So it's like, I feel safe here.
Right.
Does that excuse it? No, but it does give me kind of a justification that I wouldn't have got had I been trying to do it in and of myself. Holy Spirit had to give me, wait a minute, I've given you empathy. Use it. And once I did that,
and that's the supernatural power.
Once I did that, it started. It didn't happen like that.
Right.
But the process began, and I became more gracious.
There's a scripture that says,
and it can be tough to get to a place of empathy when you've been really hurt. And I know, and that's a fight.
A big thing.
But those are one of the extremes that we speak of. That to me, and I'm not again discounting anybody or trying to measure anybody's pain, but to me, that type of hurt is the same as the hurt that we spoke of earlier. Like that's something that nobody ever wants to go through. So at the end of the day, for you to even be in this place, bro, I'm extremely proud of you.
Appreciate that, man.
Like that is.
Appreciate that.
I'm extremely proud of you.
I feel like God uses the negative things in your life for his good. And as long as you can be at a place of acknowledging, I can't do this. I need help. And out of the prideful way, like getting away from the pride stuff, like, man, I'm gonna do this, because that's when you get caught up in hurt people.
I was gonna say earlier, as we close the conversation out, the scripture says if we acknowledge God in all of our ways, he will direct our path. And I think the directing our path comes once we acknowledge, this is where I am. I'm hurt. I'm mad. I really don't want to forgive you. Let's be honest. And Anthony said he can't change who you're pretending to be. So you got to be honest with yourself. I'm mad. I really wish that you would feel how I feel. That's where I'm at. And when we acknowledge him there, then he can direct us on where to go. And that even circles back around to, you last episode. You acknowledge God, I can't feel nothing. You know what I'm saying?
That's a real acknowledgement.
It's a real acknowledgement, but he will direct your path. And that's how Anthony got the instruction. That's how we get the placement. So to the family member who wrote the letter, you feel like you don't want to let go because you're trying to figure out how to either make the person feel bad like you feel or make yourself pay for whatever decision you did that was jacked up.
Get off the rat wheel.
But if you acknowledge God in the space that you're in, man, he can direct you and help you release that unforgiveness.
God won't put on you more than you can bear.
Absolutely.
And honestly, what I went through in that situation, had I not gone through it, things that came up in my life later, I wouldn't have been able to handle.
For sure.
So when I say God uses things for his good,
true.
Wow.
He's strategic.
That thing in that moment when I was going through it, it was like, can nothing worse happen to me?
Right.
That's a lie.
Here we go.
In this world, you will have trials. You will have tribulations. People be expecting good. They be expecting, life to be grand and everything like that when you serve God. No, that's not how it goes. He says, in this world, you will have trials. You will have tribulations, but be of good cheer. For I have overcome the world. What is he saying? He's saying, because of your relationship with me, trust me with your trauma.
That is amazing. That right there is exactly how I live my life, because I don't care how challenging something is in this season. It don't matter. Because to God it's easy. So to me it's easy. He gives you every tool you need for every situation in your life.
He does, man.
I mean, when it comes to the pain and when it comes to the trouble, when it comes to the family situations, when it comes to anything that you reach or get to or address or come to in your life, he has a plan. You just gotta trust it.
For sure.
That's
for sure.
it.
So at the end of the day, to our family member who wrote the letter, we'll say the unforgiveness or the forgiveness that you're having a hard time with, we encourage you to understand why forgiveness is so important. Once you understand why forgiveness is so important, it helps you to begin the process of forgiving. When you understand it's for you, understand it's for your betterment, you know what I'm saying? And you begin to acknowledge God in that process, whoever your God may be. You acknowledge God in the process and allow him to begin to direct your path. I believe that will really start the healing in that unforgiveness
I agree.
space.
That's good stuff, man. It's been another episode, y'all. Good stuff, right?
FBC. What we do?
And we help families navigate life by having real, transparent conversation.